Picture this. You're 200 miles from home. Your teenage son is in the passenger seat. You've just spent a weekend watching other people live the life you used to have. And everything, the banks, the credit cards, the business, it's all gone. What's left in your wallet is about £60 of available credit on one card. You don't know if that £60 is still there. Credit companies were pulling credit back without warning. It could be zero. It could be gone. If the card declines, you have no way to get home. You pull into the forecourt. You put £50 of fuel in. You walk up to the counter like a dead man. You tap the card. You wait. That's what debt really looks like. Not the numbers. That moment. That walk. In the last video, I told you how the debt was built. The salary, the credit, the businesses, the slow motion collapse, the numbers. This video is about something harder to measure. Because when you're carrying debt at that level, the kind where you're lying awake at night, running calculations that never quite work out, the financial cost is almost the least of it. What it actually takes from you is something else entirely. It takes your presence, your peace, your ability to be in a room with the people you love without your brain being somewhere else completely. And for a man with at the time undiagnosed ADHD, already wired for distraction, already spending enormous energy just holding everything together, the debt made all of that 10 times worse. I want to tell you what it cost me, not in pounds, in life. There's a kind of cruelty to living in a house you can't maintain as much as you would like. A dripping tap, a carpet that's fraying at the edges, a patch of damp you've been keeping an eye on for 2 years. Nothing catastrophic, nothing that makes the house unlivable. Just a constant low-level reminder that things are not all right. You walk past the tap 20 times a day. Every single time, it tells you the same thing. Every time you feel the carpet catch underfoot, same message. You can't escape it because you live there. Your family lives there. And there's nothing you can do about it. People don't talk about this part of debt. The ambient humiliation of a house that reflects your finances back at you every hour of every day. It wears you down in ways that are very hard to explain to someone who hasn't lived it. And underpinning all of it, underneath the tap and the carpet and the missing holidays, was something worse. Shame. Not just the shame of being in debt, the shame of knowing how it happened. The palette of wellies, the Amazon FBA courses, the men in flash houses on YouTube telling me I was one funnel away from financial freedom. The thousands I spent on systems and blueprints and masterminds that promised to change my life. I wasn't naive, I was educated, but had a career, a mortgage, and a professional title. And I got played. And I felt like a mug, like a fraud. Like a man who had built up a convincing performance of competence and been privately, comprehensively exposed. I don't blame ADHD for that. The ADHD explains some of the impulsivity, the inability to properly evaluate risk, the intoxication of the new idea, but it doesn't explain everything. At some point, I made those choices. I signed those forms. and I tapped those cards. When I got an ADHD diagnosis at 50 years old, it gave me answers. But the debt gave me no comfort at all. It just sat there, immovable, indifferent. The most corrosive thing in my life wasn't the condition I was born with. It was the debt I had built myself. I want to tell you about a father and son weekend on tour with his sports team that broke me. The trip had been on the horizon for 8 months before it happened. We paid in instalments, and each payment was a struggle. Each one harder than the last. And by the time the weekend came, I was almost completely out of money, nothing in the bank. A huge overdraft, thousands in loans. The business had long collapsed. The credit cards were maxed out. The only thing I had left was about £60 of available credit on one card, and I was saving that for fuel to get us home. My son knew none of this. All I intended to do was put on a brave face for the weekend. I generally get on with the other parents. I'd known them a long time, 9 years since our boys played under sixes together. But this was going to be a hard weekend. I had no energy, no money, and just mentally shot. The first couple of days were manageable, and then came the activities day. Sailing, rowing, that sort of thing. Most of the parents joined in. I didn't, partly because I couldn't afford an extra place, but mainly because I had nothing left to give. That was the day I crashed. I thought about it afterwards, and I realised I'd had some kind of breakdown. Someone else described it differently, not a breakdown, but a shutdown. The point where the body simply can't take any more, and the brain follows. That night at the bar, I got talking to another dad who had debt problems of his own. Nothing like the scale that I had, but real. I found some solace in that conversation. The particular relief of being seen by someone who understands. Most of the other dads were fine, good men, but the conversation around me was of kitchen extensions, annexes on their land, skiing at October half term, 3 or 4 holidays a year. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not going to eat much today. I can't afford it. And I just hope we can get home. I think my son saw me in tears one night, probably after the bar. I told him a little, that money was really, really tight, but it's a temporary thing. I didn't tell him the full extent of it. He was 15. That weight wasn't his to carry. Then it was time to pack up the car and drive home. About 20 minutes into the journey, I couldn't put it off any longer. I hoped I had £65 left on the card, but that could have changed while we were away. Credit card companies were withdrawing credit at very short notice. So I pulled in and put about £50 of fuel in, hoping it would be enough to get us home. I felt physically sick, pale, sweating, anxious like I'd never been, with my son in the car. I walked to the counter, like a dead man, tapped the card, waited. It was probably 6 seconds. It could have been an hour. I looked at the man behind the counter and assumed he knew that I was skint. That this was the last scrap of my life, right here, in a petrol station forecourt, 200 miles from home. Then, payment accepted. Whew. Relief. Temporary. A pause in the battle. Back in the car. We drove home. I got through the weekend. But I spent the next 12 months regretting my lack of presence. Not physical presence. I was there. I was always physically there. But mentally, I wasn't with my boy. And at that age, they start growing up faster. They still love you, but they don't want to spend as much time with you. The window gets smaller. And I'd spent that weekend somewhere else entirely. It didn't become the moment I decided to change. I was already there. But it was the moment everything became very, very real. In a future video, I'm going to walk you through those options honestly. What they are, what they cost, and what they mean for your life. And how I landed on the decision that I made. I'm not here to sell you anything, or give advice on what you should do. I'm here to tell you what I actually did, and what it was actually like. I took professional advice, and the solution, drastic as it is working for me. If you're in that place right now, the place where you can't eat much today, and you're hoping the card goes through, this series might be for you. I can't tell you what to do, but maybe my experiences help in some small way. Please subscribe and leave a comment, and you're not alone as you feel right now. Go and put the kettle on, and I'll see you in the next one.